Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Let's start the area committee. This just for a point of information, because I understand there's two meetings on tonight. This is the Sittingbourne area committee. There was a calc meeting, Sittingbourne calc meeting, and at the right meeting before I actually start. And thank you for coming out on such an awful evening to attend the meeting. Can I just ask people to turn their sound off on their mobile devices? And anybody online, can you turn your microphones off and camera so that you maintain the quality of the actual session? Tonight we have in attendance from Borough Council Charlotte Hudson, who is the head of Housing and Community Services, Janet Dart, who is Policy and Resources Officer, Policy and Engagement Officer, sorry, and we will have Jamil Kishore, who's the Senior Conservation Officer. We also have got online, and as part of the presentation by Inspector Vanessa Foster, who'll be talking later. Can I just ask, is there anybody here who's representing another organisation? Or are you all as individuals?
Well, you could say I am as well, Media Art Centre.
Okay.
Ken Rolls, anybody doesn't know me.
Yes, and we are too. We're the Milton Regis Society
Okay, yeah.
along here.
Thank you for that. During tonight, if you do wish to speak or say anything, can you please put your hand up so that I'll introduce you and ask you to speak. The same applies online. If you are online, you've got the option to put your hand up and we'll include you into the meeting. Just a bit of housekeeping. There's no planned fire test tonight. So if there is an alarm, then we need to leave the building as quickly as possible. And it's obviously to go out the doors here and down the stairs and meet in the car park. Is there anybody who needs any assistance with leaving the building? If so, can you let yourself be known now? No. Right, then let's start through the agenda items. Apologies for absence.
Yes, apologies from Councillor Shelley Cheeseman, Councillor Simon Clark, although I notice he is attending remotely, and Councillor Charlie Miller. And Janelle Kishore's now on remotely. She's
Any declarations of interest?
I am a member of the Little Regis High Street Society and also a trustee on the country park. Part was up for discussion. I don't believe that's up for discussion tonight.
It may come up in conversation, but not directly. Can I have approval of minutes from the 5th of September? Minutes number 251 to 261 is an accurate record.
Agreed.
Agreed. Let's move on to item 5, policing in Sittingbourne. Understand Vanessa Foster is going to give a presentation.
Chair.
Okay. Okay, do you have to?
Yeah, more than happy.
Okay, in which case we'll move off from 5 and go to 6 for community safety, and Charlotte will introduce this.
Yes, I've got some slides. Are you going to share them? Thank you.
So Steph Curtis, who's the Community Services Manager, normally does this and probably does a better job for me. So please bear with me on this one while I do this update. So today, we wanted to talk to you about the Community Social Partnership and the process that helps identify the priorities that the partnership's going to work on over the next 12 months. A little bit of scene setting to start with. The Community Safety Partnership is actually a statutory partnership that the Sittingbourne Council is a partner of, along with a number of multiple other agencies. The duty came to the council back in 1998, really set up to sort of tackle crime, disorder and antisocial behaviour. And over the years, other duties have been added to that. So things like substance misuse and reducing offending and sort of serious violence responsibilities have sort of come forward as well. There are a number of statutory partners that form the partnership, and I think that's quite useful to sort of explain because we're going to ask you to sort of highlight the priorities and understand what those agencies do that could contribute towards it. As I've mentioned already, Sittingbourne Council is a statutory partner, along with Kent County Council, Kent Police, Kent Fire and Rescue, the Probation Services and Health Services. They have to be part of the partnership, but obviously there's a lot more partners that can contribute and help make a difference with community safety matters in the borough. So we have Southern Housing, for example, heavily represented as part of the partnership, and the prisons and the voluntary sector and various other agencies that support. One of our responsibilities is to create a community safety plan each year, and it sets out the priorities for the partnership. It's very much an evidence-based document, so a lot of data is analysed and information is fed into it, but also feedback from key stakeholders, and yourselves are part of those key stakeholders, just to make sure that what the data says is what you're experiencing within the community, and there isn't something that falls down the middle, because sometimes people don't report things, as we know, and some issues can be quite hidden as well, and it's just about making sure that we have captured those. That goes into a document called the strategic assessment, and as part of that, once that's reviewed, the partnership decides on its priorities and will deliver an action plan as part of that. I do need to pop on to the next slide. No, you can just do the next arrow. Yeah. So hopefully everybody can see that, but this is sort of the current year's priorities, and as you can see, they're sort of the broad areas that the partnership works on. So sort of domestic abuse, and that is very much around what added value can the partnership do. So is it about highlighting services? Are there gaps in provision? What other things can be done? Are all our partners trained to identify and signpost in the right direction and things like that? Crime and serious violence. Serious violence has become a duty that the partnership has to tackle now, as it's sort of been creeping into the agenda more frequently. That isn't just domestic abuse, that is also sort of violence against women and girls. That can be about people being taken in public places and things like that. Obviously, crime such as burglary, shoplifting, those types of offences have reduced over the years, and it tends to be more person-based crimes that are tackled. So that tends to be a consistent priority, but obviously looking at the data about what the most significant issues are for the area at the time and focus on those. Antisocial behaviour, and again working across the partnership about who's got the relevant powers to tackle the most significant issues, what's affecting communities. And for example, this year about implementing the new neighbourhood policing model has been quite a significant area there. And we had a spate of deliberate fires, particularly on the island, and grass fires. So that's been a bit of a focus for the partnership this year. I think the rain's helped a lot in reducing that problem this year. Probably not down to the partnership, but has had an impact. And one of the things that the partnership has over the years, as it's been maturing, has really focused on is more around supporting vulnerable people. It's not something people necessarily think of as, you know, the crime and the hard disorder and social behaviour. Those people that are likely to be vulnerable, how can we help protect those? So modern slavery, the prevent agenda, people that might have underlying sort of substance misuse issues or those types of things, or be a bit more vulnerable to be targeted, you know, and drawn into things as well. So what can we do to help and protect those? And generally as a partnership, there's sort of some cross-cutting themes. So this current year, we've got reducing reoffending, how we can improve our communication and training, and also sort of some cultural awareness and looking at tackling hate crime, because we had seen a slight increase in trend. We never had a significant hate crime problem in Swell, but there was a bit of an uplift that was concerning. So we've done a bit of work to tackle that. We go on to the next slide, please, Anne. So I think that's enough of me talking to you. So really thinking about the experiences, what you've witnessed, what potentially residents have come to you with. If we could sort of maybe break out into sort of 3-4 groups, just to sort of discuss these areas. So what current community safety issues are being experienced within your community? And then once you've got those, are there a top 3? Obviously, this isn't really a forum to discuss individual issues, and obviously if there are individual issues that you've got concern with and don't know where to go with them, obviously do speak to us and we can make sure that they get signposted to the correct place. But what are the things that are collectively impacting the community, you know, similar to what we've demonstrated before? So if we can give you a bit of time to, I think on the previous area committees that Steph's attended, you probably don't need the 20 minutes. So I think if we sort of give about 10-15 minutes and then ask each group to feedback and nominate the spokesperson to do that, we can make sure that that information is captured and fed into that strategic document. Some people obviously are a bit more reflectors and may come up with things afterwards. That's still really valuable information. Or, you know, if you come across an issue, we've got a mechanism that you can send that into us. So it's not, we haven't captured it today, it's not too late, but we just want to make sure it is reflective of the concerns that are within the community currently. But, over to you.
Do you want to break yourselves into 3 groups? So 4, I would say like 4, 4 and 6, unless anybody wants to mix in, and discuss what's been asked, and then ask feedback in about 10 minutes time.
These 3 with us.
Yeah.
You have any scooters on you? Yeah. So we have a few, as I go through I don't know. What about
Right, ready to give the feedback of your three main issues?
So, I don't know if each group wants to nominate a spokesperson to feed back. You go for your group first?
Yeah, I suppose that's probably me for our group. So we had a bit of discussion, mainly focused around Milton High Street and Milton Rec and Sittingbourne Town Centre. And there's sort of three sort of broadish issues. One is to do with alcohol and substance misuse. There's been issues linked to that with the public toilets in Milton High Street. There's been very obvious issues about that on people in shop doorways in Sittingbourne, one in particular, which I know everyone here is well aware of. But also other parts of Sittingbourne Town Centre like East Street and some other areas as well, where there's obvious street drinking and probably other substance misuse as part of that. There's also a sort of general feeling about nighttime safety, some of the issues around nighttime safety. So there's been reports of some verbal attacks and experienced by business owners or other business users on Sittingbourne High Street from certain groups that gather around pubs and things like that in the High Street. And also that street lighting is poor in some areas as well, the way it's spaced out or it's quite dim. So that's a concern for people not wanting to necessarily then use some of those areas in the town centre. And then another sort of bit which is to do with just low level but intimidating antisocial behaviour around groups of people gathering in Milton High Street, but also we're having very similar issues in Sittingbourne, but also in some of the parks as well. And that a lot of those people have their faces covered, people using bikes and e-scooters on pavements, going the wrong way in traffic, just that sort of stuff that they sort of feel that they're sort of untouchable in the way that they're doing that, and that it's probably not enough for people to think about reporting it to the police, but it's enough that people think it could cause a traffic incident, or it could, you know, people might be getting hit by these things on pavements or whatever. So those are the sort of three bits that we've discussed.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Group at the back.
Hello. So we discussed, and they're enough around the same as what you talked about. So one of our main things was road safety, speeding, the e-bikes, scooters, the need for zebra crossings. Also came up that there was a bus pushed onto its side at McDonald's drive-through during the summer, so there's antisocial behaviour. But yeah, so road safety, speeding and everything to do with that. And people were very concerned about the safety of vulnerable people and children around the roads. So that was our first area. Our second area is the antisocial behaviour, which also included the drinking and alcohol and drug misuse, Sittingbourne as a whole. Antisocial behaviour around the pubs with fighting, drinking, intimidation. For both areas, again, we were looking at, so our second one was antisocial. We also wanted to include dogs out of control in the country house and the office fireworks at residents' doors and vandalism. So our third one was crime. So petty crime again, fighting. I have to declare the fact that I work in retail in Sittingbourne town centre. We have noticed a marked increase in shoplifting and abuse of retail staff. I've been abused myself. I've had my heritage questioned on a number of occasions, and I work in a charity shop. But I see people, you see them walking down the road and they will cross because there are groups of mainly men being very abusive to people, threatening, that sort of thing. But we're also getting it with the younger people. And our fear was with the youth centres closing very well increased. So perhaps this is something that definitely needs to be looked at under crime. Obviously, we get a lot of it with the kids with the bikes squeaking and that, but we also get them using Greggs as a takeaway and not paying. But again, with the intimidation, the language that comes out of them sometimes is absolutely dreadful. And people are not encouraged to report it because they think nothing will get done. So they just put up with it. We've been told not to report it. We've been told not to go after shoplifters, but we do. So yeah, so that was our three were road safety, antisocial behaviour and crime.
Thank you. And last but not least, the final group.
Yeah, ours was nearly the same. Ours was on road safety. I've had personally a lot of residents phone up about these electric scooters. Even on the news tonight, they warned that they are illegal. You need tax, you need insurance, but no insurance company will. Well, why aren't people doing something about them? Take them off the roads.
Yeah.
But no one is.
Well, I'm sure Vanessa will give you an update, but I think 12 came to the top of the league.
Yeah, the situation is,
Yeah.
you know, you see them, I see the same person every night. He uses it for work and he's speeding like anything, you know. You think, well, why isn't someone going to stop it? Same with cycles. I mean, I had a bunch of kids on bikes. I was driving down the road, they turned round and did wheelies towards me.
Yeah.
You know, and the trouble is, we also brought up the gangs of youths. You know, I call them gangs because, you know, there's 8 or 9 of them, but some of them are as young as 12. You know, we've had cases that they've done my house, they've thrown eggs. Yeah. You know, with me, okay, they want to throw eggs, don't say it like and wash it off. But with an elderly person, you know, some of my residents, they said, I won't go out because they're absolutely scared stiff. And they said, well, if you call the police, do they come? You know, I said, if you're in fear, call the police. You know, our other things was same here with fireworks going off, and you know what annoys me is that they go off weeks before bonfire night. You know, and why don't they stop selling them? You know, if you're going to do for bonfire night, sell them a week before, and that's it. But no, but
Public car parking.
oh yeah, the public car parking there, they were letting them off. But a lot of people are absolutely scared, especially, you know, the elderly, of going out of the night. You know, because they don't know what's going to happen.
That's kind of like the sort of intimidation, safety type issue.
Yeah, and in Sittingbourne High Street, night time, even daytime, you just see the groups, you know, and they go in the shops and you can see people. You think, well, it's obvious what they've done. They've taken something, but the staff don't want to go and intervene. You know, so anyway, that's
it. There's some correlation there, which is really helpful. So we will feed that into the process. So collectively, we've been going to each area committee, and obviously we will look at. We're asking all the various partners to feed into it as well, and priorities will be set in sort of think early February now. The meeting's been moved to and go from there. But no, thank you for your input. As I say, it's really valuable, and obviously Vanessa's here to do a bit of an operational update, so probably can capture some of that, some of those concerns.
Sorry, I'm just going to send that to him.
Thank you for that. As Charlotte said, if you've got any other thoughts you want to add in, and certainly with people that are online, if you want to add into the debate, there's an email address and it's csu@swale.gov.uk. So it's csu@swale.gov.uk, and they will pick up any other comments that you want to make. You know, we'll go back on the agenda. Thank you for attending.
Next door giving another update. That meeting, so yeah,
So,
in tonight.
thank you very much. So, Inspector Foster, if you want to,
Sure.
something to the group?
I think I'll just touch on a couple of those bits. It makes sense to touch on those. The e-scooters is forever a bone of contention. We had many days of operation in September, and we have days of action where we just go out and we lift as many. We don't discriminate either. We just take them off people. Sadly, the commuter who might be using it to save themselves some petrol, to the kid that's just tearing up the high street, we just take them off them. Can't do that all day, every day. You know, it's just one strand of work. But we encourage my local policing team that as and when they are driving around between call to call to just do that. But again, it's like anything. We hit it and then we refocus and then something else grabs our attention. It's never not our attention. The problem is you can use them on private land, and that's the reason they keep selling them. And all the time somebody's going to supply them, people are going to buy them. We have done lots of initiatives in places like Halfords to say you really do need to emphasise the laws around them. We're doing a huge publicity campaign as well with our Kent Police media around the fact of don't buy them. They're dangerous. There's a picture at the minute of one which has been burnt out where it caught fire. So we're trying to be really impactful with how we do that. And I remember taking a call from a parent who I seized the Christmas present early in the year, and that was just tough. That's how it was. That's the rules. Road safety, funny enough, we just gave an update on next door. Our beat officers are getting emails about road safety. They've been coming out and doing speed gun checks in certain areas. They've been doing localised initiatives with Speed Watch and coming out and doing those, pulling cars over, issuing tickets. Again, when they're getting the downtime to do those things and it's appropriate to do them, certain times of day where they've correlated issues, they've been out there doing those as well. So, and that's something that will be ongoing going forward, because like we discussed next door, I can talk to you about burglaries, robberies, drugs. When we drill into community issues, those are the things that really start to bother people. So, and we've been looking at those. ASB, huge spike in the summer months, and frustratingly, the summer months went on till October, which was very nice. But with that, it brings the youths. We've had a big government funding where we've been able to put out patrols 7 days a week in those hotspot areas. We really took a robust approach with individuals. We would hold children, call parents down. Again, you will understand a child will reflect a parent. And we have had some really supportive parents who have turned a lot of these children around. We've taken them back with CCTV footage of their children. We've really drove the message home around what these individuals have been up to when they're not in the care of their parents. I'd like to say 75% of those parents were really receptive to our efforts and not criminalising them, because that was an option. So the first run on the ladder was, I'm bringing them back to you to deal with them. If you don't deal with them, then we will deal with them. So we found that to be really impactful. I walk down the high street every day nearly, and other than school time, I don't see what sometimes the people that come to you are seeing. My boss does the same thing. We both walk down Sittingbourne High Street intermittently most days, because that is where we know the complaints come from. The shoplifting, I'll get onto those as well. But the ASB will peak. You know, Halloween, my goodness, we were run ragged. We couldn't have anticipated how Halloween was going to go in the sense of volume. We put an uplift but it did. Us, Gravesend and Swanley, we just couldn't cope. It was unreal that night. And again, next year, taxpayers' money is going to go into uplifting again those patrols and having a real robust approach. The problem, as you'll understand, is we get to half of these people, they're all in fancy dress, masked, you can't identify them. It almost felt, and I'll be honest, like it was a free-for-all that night. It gave people just a rite of passage to commit crime. We are still unpicking those investigations from that month. So we are still doing our best to identify. So the antisocial behaviour around key areas, we do uplifts for those. That'll be coming into place now with the festive season. We have uplifts on our Friday, Saturday night, which incorporates our VOG events, which is the violence against women and girls. So we will have regular patrols out in Faversham and Sittingbourne High Street, which will be doing licensing checks. We will have patted police dogs. We will have people for bystander training that we teach bar staff around, looking out for individuals that could cause people issues like the lone male. Why is he drinking there on his own? What is he looking for? We've got better evidence capture around spiking. We have a set procedure for when those calls come in around how we instruct individuals to go to hospital, get the medical evidence, we capture CCTV. We are all over those instances going forward. Somebody mentioned about lighting. We've got the Safer Streets 5 coming in. Part of that was to have an increase in lighting and CCTV cameras. So that is coming. And that is something that Swale Borough Council has been working tirelessly to put that bid into my PCC to get those type of issues dealt with. So they're recognised, they're heard, the funding comes, and we just buy our time a little bit. If I just touch on a couple other initiatives coming up, we have this time of year, burglary is one of those initiatives where we really work collaboratively with the local policing team and the CID policing team. We look for quick time data. We look at the overnight reports that come in. We target those prolific offenders which we think might be involved in those offences. We make quick time arrests and we evidence capture really quickly so that we are ensuring that those people are getting charged and remanded the minute they commit those crimes. Equally, my team target those offenders coming out the other side of prison who are known for those offences, and they are made pretty, it's made aware to them pretty quickly that we know who they are, where they live, what their type of MO is, which is their modus operandi, how they're going to offend. Because sadly, those individuals don't rarely change, but it's about making sure that we are quick to react to them back in the community. Likewise, with robberies, we've had a huge decline in robberies, I'm pleased to report. We had them in the high streets, both Sheerness and Sittingbourne, and we had a small cluster. Those arrests were made, people were charged, they were remanded. Knife crime declined as a result of that as well. We've had specific operations in relation to knife crime, where again, we've been very proactive in our stop searches. We've done weapon sweeps. We've worked with BTP at the railway stations where we've had knife arches. We've been into schools and had inputs. But robbery is something that we've stamped on really quickly, and that serious violence. It's really important that those individuals are dealt with swiftly. Majority of them were a lot of 17-year-old type ages. They were happening at like 1 a.m. So they weren't daytime, anything which would cause any alarm to the public. It was really pleased to report that these were just individuals that were out overnight and groups of youths that have clashed, and they've classed them as robberies. So they were really good. I'll touch on shoplifting because I think shoplifting probably is one of our biggest crime types, but it's the one we get the best results for. We always know who commit them. Finding them actually is a lot harder than you think, but they're certainly back out every day causing those issues. This weekend alone, we had 13 charges on shopliftings. 3 people were remanded. A couple of weekends before, I had 32 charges come out of a weekend of shopliftings and 7 remanded. Our shoplifters, I'm comfortable, are all targeted. They are all inside at the moment. The recidivist ones are inside. Those that aren't have got stringent bail conditions and or are on tag, so we can monitor them better. again, it's a cycle, they don't break. These individuals are really tough to break. They will be those that will go on sadly until they have an overdose or something happens to them, but we monitor them quite closely. But yes, they do get the better of us at times. I can't deny that. However, the way our team has been split up this year, we have local police and officers now just to answer your 999 calls. So timing should be quicker getting out there to those calls. We've then broken off into a volume-based crime team who is there to deal with your recidivist offenders of shopliftings, all of those antisocial behaviour type offences where they are dedicated to getting these teams, getting these people in. My team then work with those in the community to go out and be on them and police them and make as a nuisance to them. So yes, the shoplifting is something that we're very much on top of. Surprisingly, I thought the data was going to tell me that it was peak time now, but peak time actually comes after Christmas. It comes in that lull in January when people don't have a lot of money. So I've already got an op order in place to combat that peak. We will be working with the crime team along with, I'll have plainclothes officers out. They will be covering the key locations that we've got the data for. One of them is not surprising, it's Morrison's over on the city estate. There's the co-op at Faversham. And we will be placing ourselves in there to deal with those individuals quite robustly and quickly. So we are really looking and being data led a lot more than we ever have been, because actually we're following our nose. It makes sense. It makes sense if it says that in previous years this is where it's happening, that we go with it until something tells us different. But a good decline in big significant offences, but it's still those community-based ones that we're getting on top of, like Speedwatch, getting that guy on the e-scooter, you know, the people that are committing the traffic offences, they all still matter. There's just so many strands of priority. And the officers are really working their socks off to do that. So the street drinkers, again, I spoke to my antisocial behaviour officer the other day, who said he had a lot of referrals back in for those that were outside on the high street this week. A lot of them have got community protection notices. So what happens with those is we keep escalating the behaviour until we can get a community behavioural order on them, which gives us a power of arrest, which actually has a lot more weight to it. But you have to stack the evidence to get the court to agree to that order, sadly. But those individuals know who we are. They look untidy, but they don't generally cause people harm. Occasionally they might go into Greggs, as you mentioned. Yes, Greggs is a frustrating shop because the staff, it's not within their interest to challenge. I have constantly asked them about shop safe radio. I've asked them to put better CCTV in. I asked the local CCTV to obviously give them a bit of a better service. But sadly, yes, that is a free-for-all at times in there. But yes, the street drinkers, like you go on to, the rough sleeper team, they work brilliantly as well. They come out and deal with those individuals. Luckily, the temperatures drop, so that makes it a bit easier to get these individuals off the street. But whilst they're untidy, they don't necessarily cause too much of an issue. It is perception over reality. And where I live in my town, it's in the same thing. In Tesco's doorway, you will guarantee that you've got them there as well. I think our high streets are lending to more of this type of person because times are harder, things aren't easy, and we are supporting them, and the rough sleepers team really do. Some of them don't actually want it, believe it or not. They like their little community that they've got, because potentially if all their friends are here and we decide to house them as Sheerness, they're like, yeah, but I don't want to be split up with them. So they choose that. Not all, but there is some that choose that. So that is really where we're at the minute. All the highlights, the big offences, very much managed and dealt with. The little stuff, the beat officers are really finding that pattern now of getting into it. But I'm happy to take any questions.
Does anybody want to?
Yeah. Well, first off, I want to obviously thank you and your colleagues for everything that you do, because operationally what you have is not a small task at all. And fundamentally, I don't think over recent years police resources from the government have kept up with what you've actually needed to do your job as well as you would like to be doing. And that's not to say that I think the police in any way are doing a bad job. It's just there is so much going on that you would all like to be in 10 places at once, and that's not possible. But if we had more of you, that would really help. And I, for one, would welcome the opportunity for the government to give us more police officers, because that visibility will also help when it comes to those sorts of things, you know, like with the street drinking. I think because there's an absence of that at times, that's what sort of encourages that to continue as well. But it has, at least through the summer, been a basically daily occurrence. So a lot of them were familiar faces, and so I know you have to build up this pattern of, you know, of action against them in order to get to the ultimate result. But that's not really been regrettably improved by the bad weather, because I think there was persistent effort after, you know, a number of us in this room signed that letter about this issue in particular. There was a period of concerted effort through October and into early November, where every now and then you might see some people hanging around in doorways, but it was nothing like it had been. But very recently, it's back to being a big issue again. And, you know, it is arguably on one hand not a huge issue, but it is very intimidating for people using the high street. And the problem with it is it's unpredictable behaviour as a result. And so several times when I've had to call the police, when I've seen it, because I do use the high street nearly every day. One time that was because there was people on one side of the road and people on the other, both drinking in separate groups, that then started having a fight. And when I called up, they said, yeah, we picked that up on CCTV, and people came. They did come quickly. Other times I've seen people rowing, and one of the ladies who was actually rough sleeping had a massive cut to her head and blood pouring down her face. So she'd clearly been thumped by someone. So there are these violent episodes that sort of come out from that. And that's quite shocking for people to see in Sittingbourne High Street, to be honest, because that is a more recent thing in recent years. And that's what sort of people then very unnerved about when they see this, because they don't know whether there's going to be trouble at another point. So I think that's where it sort of builds up for people, that it is very intimidating. And what sort of didn't help, I mean, we've got the PSPO in the town, which basically means there shouldn't be any street drinking. So that should be happening every time that is witnessed. And I'm not sure that's really had been happening through the summer until we sort of raised this collectively as the town's councillors.
We won't, because you have to give them direction to leave first. If they do that and surrender their alcohol, you can't issue the ticket.
No, I know, but I think there was a lot of the time it was just going overlooked full stop. And that the alcohol wasn't even being confiscated. There wasn't really anything. It was just seen as a factor of our high street at the moment. And I think the action has stepped up in recent months, but it didn't appear to be the case at all that was happening up until then. So I think it did take that push, and I think now that it's started, obviously it's become an issue again, because we can't keep up the pressure at all times, but they are the same sort of faces all the time that are there. So it is something that, again, people then just keep coming back to us about. So I just wanted to flag it because it has been an issue again in recent weeks, that I don't know what more we ought to be doing as a council to work with the police to sort of discourage that. Because I know, for example, there was an issue with mattresses being taken from one of the businesses that just stopped them in a badly locked cage. So every time we moved the mattress, someone else went and got another one.
Mhm.
So if there's other steps that we need to take around where are they getting their alcohol from and that sort of thing as well, I think that would help make your job a little bit easier as well. So I just want to make sure that collectively we're still on this about all the different strands that we can do to try and minimise what's going on with this sort of stuff in the high street.
Licensing have done that. They've been down the high street about selling it to them. They get it from elsewhere, so it goes beyond the high street around where they get it from. It's a really vicious circle. We all would love it solved. I think it's going to be part of it where we won't solve it. We will police it. but we can't stop it because that law, we've ticketed people and the courts throw it out.
Yeah.
So sadly, whilst it is great to tell the community we have this zone, it actually doesn't mean a great deal.
No, I know.
But that's the reality. We again, will be down there, the beat officer will go there, but he's also got other priorities that he's got to do. I want the domestic of the 999 call to come in and take priority over the street drinker. Half the time, yes, the street drinkers, if they do have a bit of it's usually over their alcohol or the food they've got or something like that. You say that lady had a gash, 9 times out of 10 they've fallen over because they're that intoxicated. They move round the back out of sight to where the Costa Coffee entrance is. It's a really difficult thing, and I think we're managing it rather than solving it, is the honest answer.
Thank you for that. Do you want to say?
Yes, several times at Swell Media Arts Centre in the 34 in the High Street. We're getting a lot of late night incidents, people who leave the premises at 9 o'clock at night, being asked for money, and it's the people who are congregating at the George Public House, and they obviously know that, and these are ladies who are leaving, and they come to me the following day and said, we're not going to hire rooms because we are, it's not abuse, it's we're frightened of these people who have the George. And my father's an ex-publican, so I've got nothing against publicans, but it's just a behaviour in that area.
So certain people are leaving that pub and then they're asking members of the public.
Well, there's the outside sitting.
Right, okay.
And they usually sit there and they see people leaving number 34 and coming up and
Is that a regular occurrence then?
it was happening more in the summer.
Oh, okay.
And when it was light, actually. So you think it was more, but because cold weather, you haven't got it as much.
Did you call that? That would have been really useful to have known, because we could have done some licensing visits, we could have put the CCTV camera on them, we could have understood
We have
who those individuals.
one of the big problems, the alleyways, the dark alleyways.
Yeah.
And usually they park in behind our premises or some park on the high street, but it is the alleyways are worrying.
Okay,
Yes.
I'll bear that location in mind when we've got our patrols out on Friday and Saturdays.
Well, it's usually not on Saturdays. Our hirings are mostly on Wednesdays or Tuesdays. It's
So during the week,
not
okay.
weekends.
Well, that's something I'll certainly factor in when I'm looking at planning for next year in those lighter evenings then, if that's what you're saying.
Yes, and the other one is just a question. How old can a child cycle on the pavement? Is there a law against cycling on the pavement? Adults can't, can they?
Shouldn't cycle on the pavement, full stop.
Anybody,
Mm.
it's an offence.
Well, I was about to say, crew, it is an offence, yes. What I'll be looking at is who did that cause a nuisance to it? If I'm gonna really take the fight on with an offence like that, I'm gonna be looking at is, was anyone caused any distress? Did anyone get hurt? It's about picking the battles, but yes, ideally you shouldn't do that.
In East Street.
Yes, I know East Street very well.
On a cycle. But one on the back, one cycled past me, I'd gone to Newgate.
Yeah.
This was 10 o'clock in the morning. And past me, the one on the back booted him in the stomach. They had masks on.
Yeah, I'm sorry that happened.
Yeah.
That's not right. These things shouldn't happen. I don't even know how to defend or say in relation to that.
But, I mean, I'm just bringing it up because it happened.
No, and that's probably happening in many places, but it's not right. And again, if I then see kids riding on the pavement, I'm not necessarily going to stop them, or my patrols aren't going to stop them. Well, it's difficult, things like that. Perhaps don't be afraid to report that, but
Well,
give us some time to
attended
deal
a
with
big
it.
town meeting last week, and I brought it up at that meeting, and Pete Flynn of SFM said, well, why didn't you report it to the police? Well, because they have masks. I've never recognised them, might recognise the bike.
You might not, but we might recognise them. Because they all, trust me, they don't change their clothes very often, a lot of them. Trainers are always a giveaway. You know, persona, my cop in the street, he can spot anybody, oh, straight away, that's so-and-so, that's so-and-so. They would, so there's every potential. And things like that, we should be dealing with people like that.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry you felt that way, but please, try us next time. We'll give it a go.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh.
So CCTV is my big
Okay.
in general. Now, I have residents from Milton High Street here tonight that have been reporting stuff on 101, and I've been penciled in and passed on to Charlotte. Because quite some serious incidents been happening. Fireworks been let off on the Saturday before bonfire night. I also understand, I don't know exactly when it was, but about 6-9 months ago, there was quite a serious fight in Milton High Street by the car park. Now, I have submitted stuff across to Charlotte, basically to get a CCTV camera reinstated where we used to have it on Milton car park. We had 2 in actual fact in Milton, but this particular one. But I'll come, Charlotte obviously looks into it, comes back to me and says, you might be you, so your police have looked into this and then come back and say to Charlotte, there's not sufficient evidence to put a CCTV camera up there. Now, as far as I'm concerned, there have been some quite serious incidents there. And what I want to do on my residents, I want to stop a serious incident occurring there. I don't want someone being stabbed and murdered there. So how many reports have we got to put forward on 101 or online is the talk now before we get something done with the police back?
So if I can come in about the council's policy to start with. So we do have a CCTV policy that's sort of adopted by the Communities Committee, and that's kind of the lead committee that looks after that. And I think there's legislation that we obviously that underpins that and references in that policy. And there's a whole balance between what types of incidents, the amount of money that we have to obviously deploy CCTV as well is a key consideration, and the balance of people's right to privacy and things like that. So it's a balancing act. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's a pure number of CCTV. So part of the policy does set out that we will liaise with the local police, because we also need to understand that CCTV would have been able to prevent or resolve that issue. So it isn't like the police say no, it's a whole conversation about the balance, but that's all set out in the policy. And the level of incidents that were submitted, and I think you had some information that on email that wasn't reflected in some of the police incidents and reports as well. So I think there is a bit of an issue of reporting as well. And it is a judgment call, but there's sort of some thresholds that have to go through. And CCTV is a really valuable resource in the right place with the right resources around it to respond to it. When the CCTV was in Milton High Street previously, the legislation that is in now didn't exist. And I think it was because there was a proliferation of CCTV then that CCTV was everywhere, and we had to go through that process of assessment, and we still do as an audit process. We regularly have to go through to make sure we can justify. And it's really difficult because sometimes CCTV can drive down fire and ASB so much that you can't justify having the camera there anymore. You take it out and it puts it back in, which is also why we have mobile CCTV as that trial to start with. So I think you know, it's something the community safety unit did as a collective piece of work, but we do need the reports for the justification and the police reports, and that's kind of what Vanessa's team sort of passes back to.
We give everything we have. There's no hiding of reports. Because CCTV is a great aid to us. So we would encourage that. I jest it doesn't come out of our budget. So again, we would happily support those initiatives if we thought we could utilise our community safety unit on this side. So, but again, perception over fact. So you're telling me this is happening. What really matters is if I've got a call log on it or somebody's put an online report on. Only the data, which is what we work to nowadays, that I can go to Charlotte and say, blimey, last month, do you see how many was in Milton? And then we review it and then we really go at it again and go, perhaps we do need to take some action, or we'll try it with the mobile and then we'll see if that makes a difference. And if the problem then subsides or we get the people that do it, then fine. But it's not like we wouldn't want to, and everything is transparent with what we've got.
Just a quick coming back then. If we can't at the present time have a proper camera reinstated there with this new screens where it's monitored somewhere around there for a week, is there any chance to do some monitoring, have a hawkeye put up?
So the mobile cameras, we only have a limited number of mobile cameras. So operationally, obviously, I don't look after it directly. That sort of sits with Sean Smith, and we can sort of go back to them and find out where they are currently deployed. So we only have, so therefore we only have so many cameras. They're deployed where the greatest need is. So if there is capacity to deploy one and we've got justification, we still need to go through the same justification for deployment of a mobile CCTV camera as we would a permanent CCTV camera, because the legislation is the same. The mobile cameras are obviously easier and quicker to deploy, and it's also a really good tool to justify investing in a permanent camera if it's had the right response that we want. We can certainly take that issue away. I can't, you know, as an operator, I haven't got the operational details to hand, so I can't give you a firm response. Last time I had an update, I know all the mobile cameras were deployed. So I think we need to come back to you, but I can get somebody in the team to do that.
I've got Simon Clark online wants to ask a question.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Apologies for not being able to be there in person. Vanessa, there's nice to see you again. There's a couple of points really. One again is what's been raised with the high street. A resident of mine, he's often out and about at various different times of the day, and he's constantly reporting to us, which we pass on, and we also encourage him to pass on. People in the old Rook's butcher's doorway are quite often intimidating to people who are taking cash out of Lloyd's Bank. He's constantly reporting that one to us, and he says he reports it to yourselves and he rings up the council as well. So that's one point with that. The second point, which has been reported to leisure services on quite a few occasions, is Albany Recreation Ground. Over the course of the last few months, we've had lots of issues there. With the children's play area being set on fire on 2 or 3 occasions, and then you may be aware about a month or 6 weeks ago there was I think it was involving your officers. There was a car chase along Remembrance Avenue, which the perpetrators then went straight through the barriers across the wreck and came out over on Albany Road. So I don't know if you care to comment on that. And the final point. I've been talking to various retailers in my area, and this goes back to shoplifting. And one shop in particular, which is just on the edge of it's just outside my wall, which is the Co-op in Northwood Drive. On 3 separate occasions over the last 6 weeks, I've been going into the Co-op in Northwood Drive, and the same 2 youngsters, and I believe they're known to the police. They're certainly known to the staff in the co-op there. Um, on 3 separate occasions, I've seen them actually come out with armfuls, and I mean literally armfuls of stock, be it alcohol, be it, you know, sandwiches, food items, and all sorts. And when I spoke to the staff about it, they said, well, we won't tackle them, obviously, because we've been told by our, you know, the company that it's not policy to tackle them. I said, well, don't you call the police? And they said, well, there's no bloody point, because we call the police, they won't come out unless it's over 200 quid's worth of stock. So I said, well, you need to report it to the police, surely, for your insurance purposes. And they said, well, we make a note of it, and, you know, that goes to head office. But to be quite honest, the police are, excuse the language, are bloody useless. They won't come out when we phone them. So your comments on that, please.
Well, firstly, someone, I don't know where we wouldn't come out over £200. That's irrelevant. I don't know where they've got that from. They need to report it. The fact of the matter is, I can't do anything if I don't know about it. And yes, they might not get an immediate response. I think that's what people get frustrated with, is that they call us and expect us to be out there and then. If those shoplifters are made off, there's no serious risk to life. We've got to work our way back through the calls of what is serious at the time of that call comes in. So that's what I would encourage you all to manage the expectations of these people. Part of it is they report to you guys, and I hear this in all these meetings so often, that your people, they come to you, it's no good. It's no good you come in here, you guys telling me. They need to report it through Kent Police's systems so that we can log it and understand what's happening. I can't wait every 3 months at a meeting to be the first to hear about it. So I would encourage that. I would ask that perhaps support us in those times when people are being awkward in relation to our response, because I think fueling it and saying that I'll take it away and feed it back suggests it's happening. That's not what's happening at all. It's just we don't give that immediacy that I think people expect in those instances. Simon, where is that co-op, please?
Northwood. It's Northwood Drive.
Okay. I'll take that and talk to my counterpart at the volume crime team, because I'm pretty sure that shoplifting is our easiest detected crime. It's the one that actually puts our figures up. It's the one we really drive. My senior leadership team really encourage it. It's an easy win for us to detect shoplifting. So that's definitely something that we will always be proactive in. So if we know who those young offenders are, then we'll be dealing with it. What I can't guarantee with youths, however, is they get the same treatment as an adult would. An adult straight away charge, put before the court. A youth, that takes some time. There has to be an appetite from the youth offending team to deal with these individuals, and that process can take at least 3 months.
Well, these individuals that I actually have witnessed on 3 separate occasions, I would estimate they might be 15, 16 years old. So that.
No, I understand. And those type of individuals aren't like little Johnny who's nicking a Mars bar. These are intimidating individuals. The youth of today aren't quite what, you know. So when I talk to my custody counterpart who would refuse their detention, I will say to them, this isn't a 15-year-old kid who sat at home, usually doing their homework from, you know, a relatively nice family. These are individuals that if you stop them, they're going to pull a knife. That's the reality of something. But Simon, I would encourage that reporting. We've discussed Rooks. Rooks is what I know about the street drinkers. It's going to be forever an issue that we monitor, we will deal with, we will take it forward. We will work in harmony with the council, with our ASB officers who will take those additional powers to the courts to get some sanction from them. It's a tough crowd. It seems easy, doesn't it? Lift them up, move them on, arrest them, they'll go straight back out. There has to be some intervention and longevity to these solutions. And like I said earlier, I think we'll be managing the problem for some time, in the honest truth. But what I would always encourage is you need to ask people like Milton, you've got to report to us. This gent here coming to us is a little bit too late to hear about it now. And again, what Simon's raising is you will call us and expect us to be there to you when you do that call. It might be that that call gets followed up a couple of days later and that we come out and deal with it a bit slower time because there isn't an immediacy at that time. A fight going on, there could be. Fireworks being let off, I'd like to think we'd come out and deal with that. But it's just like my priorities are just so spread. Just makes it really difficult. But if you keep reporting, it builds the picture.
Karen. Did you want to say something?
Andrew.
Andrew, sorry.
Karen's over there. So, hello, taking it back to Milton Region.
Mhm.
I'm on the understanding that iWait has CCTV, we fund that for iWait, and I would like to see the data for iWait.
So I think that's something I probably need to bring back to you, because I haven't got that to hand. Parish councils can run their own systems and work within their own parameters, and that's obviously their decision making in terms of the legislation. And I think they would therefore fund it. I think in unparished areas that makes it a little bit more difficult, and I think that is an issue that we are experiencing. But I can certainly come back to you with that.
Partly answered the question I was going to answer. And we don't have a third tier level of local government. So what I was going to ask was a hypothetical question. If we were able to fund a camera locally to the community, could we link into the system and fund it?
I think
Would that be acceptable?
I think I need to refer to the policy on that one and probably come back to you. I think it gets a bit more difficult about the land ownership and who's legally responsible and those types of things. So it's about that legal entity and things like that. But I will take that away as an action and come back to you.
Last question tonight. Tim, do you want to say something?
It's an observation and a question mark, and I'll be really brief with it. And so it'll come as no surprise to those that know me well. A member of the Blue Light Union, so a great supporter of Vanessa. And you talk about managing expectations, and I do that all the time, not just from the police perspective, but also from a council perspective, when they think that we're going to get somebody out to clear rubbish, fly tipping away, it's not going to happen. So I'm quite kind of skilled in that. But sometimes I just feel like we need to be met halfway with that. I had one incident, and again, I just let you people deal with it. An hour and 15 minutes with a guy with a knife for somebody to respond. Now, if that's not a light threat, and he was banging on doors. It was really funny because there were very elderly people in that area. But really, an hour and 15 minutes, and when the crews arrived, what they said was, well, actually, we've been looking after a prisoner at Gravesend.
Mm-hmm.
So, to me, that's not really a reactive 999 service that I like to see. Secondly, on that is in terms of the evidence gathering stuff, and then I would say to everybody, if it's not recorded, it didn't happen. And again, I've got a really good relationship with people, and I understand Ken's kick there. If that had been recorded, perhaps, and another 3 incidents or something that these things have been involved in, then we've got some empirical data. We can say, actually, this is happening, this is the case. And to be fair, we can only hold you to account if we've got that evidence. And it's just as simple as that. But, we do need to work together. But we do need to be met halfway with a lot of the issues. And I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
The calls, I'll just touch on the calls. I used to be the force control manager prior to taking up this role. We run out. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
I can't. I would hate to scare you with some of what happened just last week on a Tuesday night where we had 7 blue, like 909 calls outstanding.
Yeah.
For the whole of North Division. We couldn't, but I could have 2 people stuck at the hospital with an individual. It could be a prisoner because they've taken this, that, and they're in our custody. So yes, that's not great, but that's part of the job. We just are running out. Demand's high and we don't have it, and we are doing our best to, and we will catch a cold, something will happen, and it will be because of our response time, and that's being very transparent. I'm sure my bosses wouldn't appreciate me saying that, but that is the fact. We turf these officers out who have just got finished one thing, they barely put their pen down, they're back out. For them to have to ask for comfort breaks has become a thing, so that they can, dare I say, go to the toilet. They are run ragged. It's not right, but it's beyond me what that answer is. Yeah, we've got more cars than we've got officers, which never used to be the way. So, and demand's high. People are out there committing crime, which is beyond what I think we can cope with. Is the reality. So,
Thank you for coming.
no, not a problem.
Thank you for coming. Just that struck me from listening to what's been said. The two things that I've written down here is we need to report incidences, no matter what.
It does make a
Because if it's data led, if it's not reported, nobody will deal with it. So we do need to go out there and tell residents to report them, even though there's not an instant response. You still got to report it. And secondly, as councillors, we've got to reflect that and say the reason why it's not happening is because they need the information in the first place, and they're hard stretched as it is. So I think we've got two roles. It's not just us councillors, we're getting complaints from residents. We need to be saying what the police are doing as well. So it's a two-way street. That's what I would just like to say, to sum up that. But thank you very much for coming.
No, not a problem at any time.
Let's go.
Yes, as long as there's someone down, should be someone downstairs.
If you go the back way, there should be somebody there.
The back way,
Back way, yeah.
so not the lift straight down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Great, and then go out back.
All right, brilliant. Thank you. Nice to see you all.
Right, moving on. We'll go back and we'll go on move item 7, Milton Regis Conservation Area. We have Jamila Chishore who's online. Would you like to give your presentation? Not this sound.
Good evening. Milton Regis Conservation Area. We've recently completed the area appraisal, and the document is out for public consultation right now. The area was designated a conservation area in 1977. And next slide, please. Yeah. And this is the first time that a full review has been undertaken of the area. It has, it's one of the oldest, it's one of Kent's ancient settlements, and it has the highest concentration of listed buildings in the borough. In 2016, Milton Regis Conservation Area was put on Heritage at Risk Register, and its condition was noted as poor and its vulnerability as medium and its trend as deteriorating. These are the three aspects that Historic England records heritage at risk at. Next slide, please. Can I manage it? Oh, that's all right. Yeah, thank you. So the sorry, my throat is not with me today. The red blocks show the listed buildings which are grade 2 listed. There's one grade 2 star listed building, and yellow blocks highlight the buildings that make a positive contribution, and the blue highlights the building that makes a negative contribution to the conservation area. This is the current boundary of the conservation area. And the appraisal has resulted in proposed changes to the boundary. Next slide, please. So there are several areas that are proposed to be extended all along the edges of the conservation area. I'll come back to that. Next slide, please. So proposed boundary changes A, B1, B2, B3, and C. These are mainly to to reflect the existing property boundary lines, which may have changed over time, but these are proposed amendments just to include the current property boundary into the conservation area. Then proposed boundary change D is to extend the conservation area to include the workshop attached to the north of 117 High Street and its boundary wall, which is constructed of burr brickwork. While the building, which was originally a forge, has undergone changes over the years, it still retains its original shape and materials, and it forms a good group with 113 to 117 High Street, which are listed buildings. And then proposed boundary change E is to remove the access track which runs between the rear of 93 and 95 High Street and Walnut Court from the conservation area. The boundary currently bisects the bungalow at number 2 Walnut Court, so it too should be removed from the conservation area. Next slide, please. Then proposed boundary change F is to remove land at the rear of number 71 to 87 High Street, as well as a group of flat roofed garages and 3 and 4 Cortland Mews from the conservation area. The area appears to fall outside the original burgage plots, and the modern buildings are of no architectural interest. Then proposed boundary change G runs along the entire street, but this is primarily to include the retaining wall which fronts Crown Road between number 14 and its junction with Beechwood Avenue. The wall is constructed of local yellow stock brickwork and is a significant feature in the street. Next slide, please. Then proposed boundary H is to remove from the conservation area the car park in the backland triangle between Crown Road and St. Paul Street. The area has no intrinsic architectural or historical interest, so does not fit well within the conservation area. And proposed boundary change I is to include all of the grass and the public footpath adjacent to the east of number 4 St. Paul's Road within the conservation area. The boundary currently includes only part of the grass area to the rear of 16 to 26 Kingsmill Close, and the proposal is to include all of it, and it would be worth retaining all of that green area within the conservation area. Next slide, please. So those were the proposed boundary changes. And as I said earlier, Milton Regis is a conservation area which is on Heritage at Risk Register. And there are a number of listed properties within the conservation area which are also in a very poor state. And there are some key proposals that have come forward from the management plan. In order to, I think our ultimate aim is to get Milton Regis off the Heritage at Risk Register, B, through management and through continuous review, if we can upgrade the area, if we can improve what is already there and is deteriorating, that would really help. So there are several audits that have been proposed. An audit of public signage, including highway signage, could be taken to establish whether all current signage and road markings are necessary, well designed, and appropriately located. An audit of street furniture. There are lots of bollards, benches, bins, salt bins, bus stops. This could be undertaken to establish whether all street furniture is necessary and identify its maintenance and repairs wherever required. There are a number of overhead supply lines and poles, again, that could be audited and improved upon. An audit of trees could be undertaken to establish a proper management regime and identify opportunities for planting new or replacement trees. Consideration could be given to the replacement of concrete highway curbs with more traditional curbs. And there are railings around the Court Hall car park as well as the cast iron fountain are in need of redecoration. Now, these are quite important features because railings around the court hall would form part of the curtilage of the listed court hall. And the iron water fountain is, of course, an intrinsic part of heritage of Milton Keynes. So if that could be maintained and redecorated, that would then definitely benefit. Coming to the properties, there are a number of properties that are deteriorating and are in poor condition. And it has also come, I'll come to the responses later, but we've received a few responses regarding these properties during our public consultation. But as a start, because these properties are in private ownership, as a start, we could start to audit, do an audit of them in terms of photographic record and identify what can be done to improve them, or at least identify the works required and proceed on that in a more detailed and manageable manner. And if we are able to do these things over time, then the area will benefit and we'll be able to get it off the heritage at risk register. Next slide, please. The public consultation is ongoing right now, and it's scheduled to conclude on 22nd of December. As of today, I have only received 3 responses, and we are aiming to present a report and recommend it for adoption and redesignation to Policy and Resources Committee on 7th of February. And if it goes through Policy and Resources Committee, and if they agree to adopt, then the final adopted document is estimated to be published on the SPC website by Easter of 2024. In terms of responses that we have received so far, has been in relation to the aspect of managing the properties that are in deteriorating condition. People have said that we don't have the money, we can't manage it. But the whole exercise is not about asking people to shell out a lot of money straight away. It's also about managing. And I think as a local authority, in conjunction with the community, we can help do that. We can do that together by doing an audit, by having a program of works, and improve Milton Regis overall. Thank you. Any questions?
And do you want to indicate if they've got any questions?
Well, yes, that's the thing, unless you're saying you've got some money or you've got grants, how can you do it? I mean, Regis has been a sort of sleeping beauty for a long time. I mean, all the conservation areas in Swale have been looked after because they've been supervised by parish councils or town councils. And Milton Regis hasn't had one. So it's been neglected and it's been the subject of inappropriate development. And luckily at last, we've got an officer or a councillor looked at it and given a report to it, and in some respects, through neglect, it's been preserved, like Abbey Street was. When I was a youth, I can remember driving down it and it was all boarded up. And now, you know, through neglect, it got preserved, and look at it now. But the problem is supervision to this, and who's going to form the leadership and do it, and where's the money coming from? You know? The owners of these buildings have got a statutory right to maintain them, and local authority have got a statutory right to make them maintain them. So if they're not, you know, it's up to the Swale Borough Council to make them. Also, they've got statutory rights to enforce inappropriate development, but it hasn't happened. And because nobody in the community's made them or bothered to draw attention to it, it's all gone by the by. So, I mean, that's just about the buildings. The rest of it, I mean, one of the real things that is needed is the traffic management. This is what will bring it together. It needs to be one way. Road needs to be narrowed. What more can be thought about in terms of overall landscaping and development as a heritage centre, included in that report, I think. But, you know, it needs imagination and leadership, and perhaps looking to central government grants and saying this is a heritage project, and it is a at-risk thing. And it's a deprived area, there isn't the money locally, or even, you know, I don't know, these are just ideas I'm throwing around, but these are my observations.
Can I just ask, have you actually put, an email into the conservation? This is out for consultation at the moment. Have you
Yes.
actually put anything into
Yes.
into the?
We're going to be doing.
Yeah, I'm going to be commenting, but these are just my verbal comments. I'm going to respond in writing to before. Yes.
Yes.
But I thought it was a very good report that has been done, and I think I agree almost entirely with everything in the report. It's an excellent report, and I'm gladdened to see it. It's not good.
I've got a couple of points. With the removal of the heritage line to the west, which you have mentioned tonight, that to be removed from Walnut Close property. I'll take it that is going to actually happen, is it? First question.
Yes, yes. I mean, so far we have not received any response regarding the boundary changes or why they shouldn't happen. And so therefore, if we don't receive any objection to the boundary changes, then the boundary changes will go ahead. That is how we will present it to the Policy and Resources Committee. But if anybody feels that there is not any merit in one of the boundary change or several of them, then they should respond so that we can take that into account.
It's got to come back by the chair. I mean, I did take a walk around the back of Rosie's shop during the week, and the heritage line, as I see it comes back, will just run rear of the boundaries of the properties within the high street, the existing
Yes.
heritage.
Yes.
Just one other thing is, I think constituents there have suggested submitted about 20 mile an hour speed.
Yes, definitely. Yes, definitely.
That's a highways issue, I know, but that could be perhaps a possibility that could be explored.
And certainly more in keeping with the heritage area.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. And can I also say that I think the boundary should be further out beyond the gardens, because there is a fear that people could build quite a lot of flats that can be seen from the high street behind the listed buildings. And I do think the boundary should be further out, wider, to take in the gardens and maybe more land as well.
Sorry, Chair, there was fun, I think it's the same person. So, yeah, I was hoping you was actually to be in person, but it doesn't matter. There's been some walls demolished down a tree coming down.
All the trees.
All the trees have
All
come
the
down.
trees,
Of
apart
the
from one
area.
walnut tree.
No, that's correct,
Yeah.
that's right. Is there any chance that you or Simon Olga could come out and have a look on site to discuss this, to see if this actually.
And I think at the back of the house that was in the middle of your pictures there, they've actually bricked up a window. And yet it took a gentleman 2 years to get permission to replace his windows. And that house has only been bought in the last 3 to 6 months, isn't it? Something like that. So and they've already removed virtually every tree from the garden. The dividing walls have been pushed down. Unfortunately, the people that live in there don't want to speak about it because they're now tenants to a new landlord. But it's just.
What's the address of this property?
I know there's 71, so it includes that house that you had as the middle picture. I'm not sure 100% what the numbers are. It'd be from the archway on there. There's a beautiful Tudor building with an archway that would have been the carriageway. And then those houses from there up to about number 71, I believe. Same land, same all of those properties. So that middle picture, that middle one.
65 High Street.
It's a 65, yeah. So he's brought virtually from the archway all the way up to number 71. And he is already doing works within, don't know what works, but how he can be bricking up windows within a short period of time of owning that property. When another person took 2 years to get permission to place windows.
I think this is a serious matter, and if you can, I mean, either later tonight or tomorrow morning, if you can just email me the address.
Okay, yeah.
Accurately address, I can at least, as a start, I can get in touch with the enforcement team and start the case, and then perhaps next week, either me or Simon could come out and take a look, and we can start the process as soon as possible.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Any more comments? Thank you for your presentation. We will move on with the agenda tonight.
Please encourage everybody, neighbors, to respond. It'll be good to have a few more responses to the consultation. Thank you.
Cheers.
Because of time, you jump. That's all right.
I'm just going to change the agenda around a minute, noticing the time. We're going to do agenda item 9 next, which is the enhanced partnership, which is Swell Local for the focus group, which is looking at transport in the area. And we need a nomination for a member of this working party, but Janet will introduce it.
Yes, certainly. You'll find a report in the agenda packs. And just to summarise, Kent County Council used to manage and run quality bus partnerships for each district. They were used to raise and discuss local issues. These meetings ceased to exist when the government started developing its national bus strategy. The national bus strategy was launched in March 21 and was a blueprint to help improve issues such as infrastructure, bus travel and air quality. KCC received funding from the government for various initiatives, which you'll find detailed in the report. As part of the funding, each area is required to set up an enhanced partnership, which is a statutory board. Other high-level groups have been set up, but they have no district-level representation. To bridge that gap, KCC have suggested that enhanced partnership local focus groups are set up in each district. KCC have agreed to send along representatives to these meetings, but they can't resource them. It was agreed at the Policy and Resources Committee to set up a Swale local focus group, which will meet twice a year and will be managed by the Director of Regeneration and Neighbourhoods, Emma Wiggins, who will chair and coordinate the meetings. Swale Borough Council will be the conduit to bring partners together rather than leading or delivering any work directly. Given the interest locally in bus infrastructure, it is proposed that issues to be raised are requested from each area committee prior to the local focus group, with feedback to the area committee after the local focus group is met. It's anticipated that the Swale Local Focus Group will hold its first meeting at the end of January, beginning of February. And these meetings will take place during the day. Each area committee are invited to nominate one representative to sit on the Swale Local Focus Group. I can confirm that from the Planning and Transportation Policy Working Group, we already have representatives, Councillor Karen Watson and Councillor Alistair Gould. So I'd like to now move on to nominations for somebody from the Sittingbourne Area Committee to sit on this local group. Do we have any nominees? And it has to be a borough council.
It has to be a councillor.
Yeah.
Borough council. Yeah.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Tony Winkler.
Seconder?
I'll second
Any other nominations?
Show of hands.
Are those in agreement? I presume I can vote.
That's me.
One of the things the group wants is that any issues that are known about or members feel that they should raise. What I would say is that if anybody has any issues at the end of the meeting, to come to talk to me and to Tony, and we'll take them forward rather than having a discussion now.
Yeah.
Should we do matters arising? Go through matters arising.
Yes, so on page 9 of the agenda pack, you'll find matters arising report. I won't go through each item in turn, but does anybody have any questions or comments? Know that the chair would like to give a further update on item 2 of this report.
I was just going to say, with regard to item 2 of building physical strategy, there is currently a cross-party working party on the leisure contract, and they're looking at what facilities is needed for the whole of Swale, which is part of what's going on here. And the report is due to go to Community Committee at the beginning of Feb on their first options. So there is a working party on that at the moment. Any comments? Tony?
I would just like to say it's been good to see that the work has been done in the tennis courts at Milton Regis there. Basically, been improvement.
Yeah. They've done a good job.
They've done a good job.
Yes.
very positive for me.
Just go back to item 8, the public forum. Is there any questions from members of the public they wish to raise? Agenda item 11, any local issues to be raised? Is there any members who have anything they wish to raise regarding local residents and communities? You know then, do we have any items raised? Concerns, Chair?
There's nothing that's come up during this meeting that would need to.
That point. The next meeting is on the 22nd of Feb and it's at the Kemsley Community Hall. And at that point, I will close the meeting at 8 to 9. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.